Now, Malaysia hopes to be the first country in the world to enact a tobacco generational endgame when a proposed landmark legislation is brought to Parliament next month. Health Minister Khairy Jamaluddin said if passed and enforced effectively, it can result in significantly better health outcomes for many years to come. According to Khairy, if the law is passed, Malaysians born after the year 2005 will never be able to buy or use any smoking products anymore. He said there were those who believed that banning was never the solution. However, he is determined to make this work. Khairy said this in his keynote address titled Future Proofing Public Health Care, delivered at the Public Health Thought Leadership Dialogue, which was held at the Saw Swee Hock School of Public Health at the National University of Singapore. Now, the Ministry of Education, or MOE, is preparing a working paper to be tabled to the Cabinet on the need to boost internet facilities in all schools in the country, in line with the implementation of digitalisation in education. The Senior Education Minister, Datuk Dr. Muhammad Razi Muhammadjidin, said the preparation of the working paper, which involved the views of all quarters in the ministry, was now in the final stage.
Sekarang ini di sekolah internet hanya ada di 3 tempat yang kita sediakan, iaitu di bilik guru, di pusat sumber dan di pejabat sekolah. 3 tempat. Namun begitu, apabila kita bercakap tentang pendigitalan pendidikan, perkara paling penting adalah untuk memastikan akses internet di sekolah ini lebih meluas, dan khususnya dalam kawasan bilik darjah. Dalam kawasan bilik darjah lebih meluas, dalam kawasan asrama, dalam kawasan-kawasan keseluruh kawasan di sekolah tersebut. Ini bagi memastikan apabila kita laksanakan pendigitalan nanti, kita tidak akan mempunyai kekangan dalam sudut akses kepada internet.
He added the process of upgrading the internet involving over 10,000 schools in the country would entail a large expenditure worth billions of ringgit, while hoping that the effort would receive support and approval. Majlis Amanah Rakyat or MARA plans to expand its strategic cooperation with foreign universities in new fields of study for its sponsored students. Rural Development Minister Datuk Sri Mazid Khalid said the strategic cooperation would involve highly rated universities like the University of Manchester or UOM, United Kingdom, which is now ranked 35 in the world. Datuk Sri Mahathir is now in the United Kingdom for a 7-day official working visit, accompanied by the Ministry's Secretary General, Datuk Ramlan Harun, and MARA Director General, Datuk Azhar Abdul Manaf. He has met the top management of UOM, led by its Vice President of Learning, Teaching and Student Affairs, Professor April McMahon. The meeting was held to discuss and exchange views on new fields of study that MARA-sponsored students can explore at UOM. To date, MARA has 3,391 sponsored students from abroad, with the largest number being in the United Kingdom at 1,422 students. Malaysian Hajj pilgrims are seen as more prepared and at ease in performing their Umrah. Lembaga Tabung Haji or TH Operations Director of Guidance, Ustaz Tengku Aziz Raja Abdullah, said the view was based on a post-mortem conducted by TH staff after several groups of pilgrims completed their first Umrah pilgrimage on arrival in Mecca. Tengku Aziz said the pilgrims could understand the minor Hajj and Hajj rituals much better, as generally they only voice anxiety over minor issues which would not invalidate their worship.
Tahun sebelum ini memang dengan keadaan jemaah yang ramai agak mencabar sedikit. Jadi alhamdulillah pada tahun ini, oleh kerana keadaan Masjid Haram pun selesa untuk melaksanakan tawaf, tidak dipenuhi dengan jemaah-jemaah lain, alhamdulillah banyak jemaah haji kita rasa syukur dengan keadaan tersebut, dan mereka yakin dapat laksanakan tawaf dengan sa'i, dengan keadaan yang sempurna dan meyakinkan.
In addition, he was confident that the courses organised by Tabung Haji before the pilgrims departed for the Holy Land were one of the factors which assisted them in performing the minor Hajj as best as possible, other than the role of TH staff here who provided information from time to time. He said various training mediums, including online Hajj courses, had also been provided to ensure the pilgrims always received guidance not only on worship but also on looking after their health and cleanliness, especially when in Arafah and Mina. Now, the government will carry out cloud seeding operations in the catchment area of the Bukit Merah Dam in Semangol, Karian district, in what is hoped to be a solution to overcome dry conditions in the area and help irrigate 19,508 hectares of drying paddy fields there. Now, Minister of Agriculture and Food Industry, Datuk Sri Dr. Ronald Kendi, said the operation is expected to be carried out from the 14th to the 16th of June, depending on cloud condition, suitability and appropriate humidity. He explained the operation is a process to encourage the formation of rain clouds after the water level of the Bukit Merah Dam, the main irrigation source for the agricultural area, started dipping to the critical irrigation level 3 category of 6.1 meters. Now, it will be carried out by the National Disaster Management Agency, the Malaysian Meteorological Department, the Royal Malaysian Air Force and other relevant agencies. He said the areas affected are the Karian Integrated Agricultural Development, IADA, and part of IADA in Sungai Aceh, Pulau Pinang, covering 1,267 hectares. Subsectors that will also benefit are the fisheries and manufacturing sectors. He said the ministry will be holding talks with the Environment and Water Ministry, Met Malaysia, the Perak government and other relevant agencies to find long-term methods to resolve the issue. The Federal Land Development Authority, or FELDA, will table a paper on suggestions to tackle the food crisis. Now, Minister in the Prime Minister's Department of Economy, Datuk Sri Mustafa Mohamad, said the move taken by FELDA was in line with the government's aspiration that government-linked companies, or GLC, should tackle the food crisis together. He said the working paper has been prepared and several items are given focus to assist the government to tackle the food supply crisis, specifically the cultivating crops needed as livestock feed. Meanwhile, Datuk Sri Mustafa said University Kebangsaan Malaysia, or UKM, was conducting a study on a development model for FELDA land to help the agency to be more successful. He said this study was important to ensure FELDA's performance is further enhanced, adding the scope of the study looks into how the settlers can diversify their income. The Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, or IPEF, should be used as a platform to embark on a new paradigm of the 21st century. And this is to ensure faster and fairer growth for economies in the region, as well as foster inclusivity and shared prosperity. In making this call, Senior Minister of International Trade and Industry, Datuk Sri Muhammad Azmin Ali, said as the world moves towards greater convergence of issues across the board, the framework's strategic and economic significance lies in its ability to strengthen the region's trade ecosystem, providing the impetus to drive economic engagement and cooperation. He said this on his Twitter account after attending the informal ministerial meeting of the IPEF for Prosperity with 13 other framework partners in Paris. Datuk Sri Azmin also reiterated Malaysia's position that the framework is indeed a vital tool of economic diplomacy in forging further linkages between the United States and the Indo-Pacific region. In this regard, he urged for collaborative resolution of trade issues through consultation and dialogue, as such an approach would resonate with the region at large. In our foreign segment, 2 killed in India, protests over remarks against Prophet Muhammad. Ukraine will learn by the end of next week whether it can start the process to join the European Union. Now, during a surprise visit to the capital Kiev, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen met President Volodymyr Zelensky on Saturday and told him about discussions on whether to recommend Ukraine as a candidate for membership. The move would only be a preliminary step in a long process. All 27 EU governments would have to agree to grant Ukraine candidate status, after which there would be extensive talks on the reforms required before Kiev could be considered for membership. Zelensky has been pressing for rapid admission into the European Union as a way of reducing Ukraine's geopolitical vulnerability after Russia's invasion. But officials and leaders in the bloc caution that even with candidacy status, actual EU membership could take years or even decades. Joining the EU is a process that usually takes a long time and requires meeting strict criteria, from economic stability to rooting out corruption to respecting human rights. Tens of thousands of demonstrators gathered in Washington, D.C. and across the country on Saturday, calling on lawmakers to pass legislation aimed at curbing gun violence following last month's massacre at a Texas elementary school. March for Our Lives, or MFOL, the gun safety group founded by student survivors of the 2018 massacre at a Parkland, Florida high school, said it planned more than 450 rallies for Saturday, including in New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. In recent weeks, a bipartisan group of Senate negotiators have vowed to hammer out a deal, though they have yet to reach an agreement. Their effort is focused on relatively modest changes, such as incentivizing states to pass red flag laws that allow authorities to keep guns from individuals deemed a danger to others. The Democratic-controlled U.S. House of Representatives on Wednesday passed a sweeping set of gun safety measures, but the legislation has no chance of advancing in the Senate, where Republicans have opposed gun limits as infringing upon the U.S. Constitution's Second Amendment right to bear arms. Two teenagers were killed in clashes in eastern India that followed derogatory remarks about the Prophet Muhammad by two ruling party officials. Police opened fire to break up the violence in the city of Ranchi in Jharkhand state, but it was not clear if the two victims were killed by the police or by rioters. Senior police official Surendra Kumar Jha said at least 14 police officials were injured in the incident in Ranchi and other areas. A curfew was imposed and internet services suspended to stop the unrest escalating. In northern Uttar Pradesh state, police said they had arrested 230 alleged rioters after unrest spread across several towns after Friday prayers. Police superintendent of the Uttar Pradesh city of Prayagraj said protesters were being identified using video evidence collected. In Howrah district, West Bengal, police on Saturday confronted stone-throwing crowds and battled a blaze inside a residential building during fresh protests. The Muslims have been protesting about comments made recently by two officials from Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party about the Prophet's private life, with the demonstrations often turning into violence between Hindus and Muslims. The hundreds of people and several lawmakers protested Saturday in southern Lebanon against Israel moving a gas production vessel into an offshore field partly claimed by Beirut. The demonstration comes just days before the U.S. envoy mediating maritime border talks between the two neighbors is expected in Lebanon, and after the ship operated by London-listed Energen plc arrived in the Karish gas field last week. Several hundred people waved Lebanese and Palestinian flags at Lebanon's border town of Nakura to protest Israel's claim on the area where the Karish field is located. Lebanon and Israel have no diplomatic relations and are separated by a UN-patrolled border. Lebanon's president and prime minister have condemned Israel for moving the vessel into the Karish field and have invited U.S. envoy Amos Hochstein to Beirut for mediation. Hochstein is scheduled to arrive in Lebanon on Monday for a 2-day visit. Lebanon's powerful Iran-backed Hezbollah group this week warned Energy against proceeding with its activities. Lebanon and Israel resumed negotiations over their maritime frontier in 2020, but the process was stalled by Beirut's claim that the map used by the United Nations in the talks needed modifying. Coming up in sport, Farizal's ill-timed foul leads to another loss against Bahrain. National women's doubles pair Pearly Tan and M. Tina's journey at the Indonesian Masters Badminton Championship ended after losing in the semi-finals to Indonesian pair Apriyani Rahayu Siti Fadia after battling for an hour and 14 minutes at the Istora Senayan Stadium in Jakarta. Now, the 10th ranked pair lost 23-21, 14-21, 14-21 yesterday. In the first set, Pearly and Tina, the sixth-seeded pair in the tournament, started well to take the first set 23-21. But the Indonesians, seeded 7th, bounced back to win the second set 21-14 to force the game into a rubber. Now, pushed by home ground support, Apriyani Rahayu and Siti Fadia then confirmed victory in the third set to proceed to the final. The Malaysians only have themselves to blame for the countless unforced errors after taking the first game. The Indonesians, fresh from winning the Hanoi SEA Games title last month, will take on world number 1 and reigning world champions Chen Qingchen and Jia Yifan of China in the final. Now, the Chinese pair booked their spot after a 21-12, 21-13 win over South Korea's Jeong Na-yoon and Kim Hae-jong. The Pearly-Tina defeat meant there will be no national representatives in the final stage of the tournament after Malaysia's number 1 men's singles player Lee Zhejiang lost to Indonesia's Anthony Sinasuka Ginting in the quarterfinals on Friday. Take a look at football now. A penalty converted by Bahrain substitute player Abdullah Yusuf Hilal at the end of the second Group E match of the 2023 Asian Cup qualifiers last night was enough to sink all hopes of Malaysia pulling off a surprise against Bahrain as Harimau Malaya went down 2-1 at Bukit Jalil National Stadium. Abdullah's penalty in the 81st minute was awarded by Tajikistan referee Sadulo Gulmurodi after Malaysian keeper Muhammad Farizal Marlias brought down Ali Jafar Madan in the penalty box. Both teams were struggling to take control of the match on the waterlogged pitch after heavy rainfall before the game. Malaysia had 3 chances to score in the first half, with winger Alkia Abdul Rashid coming closest in the 30th minute. However, his attempt was blocked by Bahrain goalkeeper Syed Muhammad Abbas. Mohamadu Sumare broke the deadlock for Malaysia in the 54th minute after turning in a Ahmad Kuzaimi PE's cross from the left. However, the lead only lasted for 3 minutes as Bahrain drew level after Ali Abdullah Haram scored from a melee in the 57th minute. With the match locked at 1-1, both teams redoubled their attacks, bringing in several substitutes, but were unable to create any opportunity to get ahead until Fariza's ill-timed foul that led to the penalty in the 81st minute. Now, Bahrain's win sends them to the top of Group E with 6 points, with Malaysia and Turkmenistan both with 3 points in second and third, and Bangladesh last without a single point. To keep their Asian Cup dream alive, Malaysia must beat Bangladesh in the last match on Tuesday. During the post-match media conference, national coach Kim Panggon highlighted that heavy rain had affected pitch conditions, causing his side to not perform at their best, but admitted that small mistakes they made ultimately led to a big impact on the final score.
Of course, tonight very important we get at least 1 point. Like first we score first, then if we get 3 points, could be first on the stage. But this is what happened already. I think we need to quickly recover to focus next game. Next game very important for us. We must get 3 points to be a second in the group.
Meanwhile, Bahrain's coach Helio Felipe Sousa was happy that his team managed to overcome the pressure and pitch conditions to secure 3 valuable points against Malaysia, who he said played very well throughout the 90 minutes.
I must be so grateful to my players. They were fantastic, unbelievable. They have such a heart, such a fire, such a commitment with the country, with the team of Bahrain, with the fans of Bahrain. What they are doing are unbelievable. They never played before like this, 3, 4, 5 years against a very good team, strong team. The ranking of Malaysia at this moment don't reflect the quality of the team and the players that they have at this moment. And we fight all our tools, and I think we get a deserved victory that is very important for us.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob expressed pride in the fighting spirit shown by Harimau Malaya. In a Facebook post, he said victories and defeats are part of a competition, and national coach Kim Panggon must continue to prepare the Harimau Malaya squad for their next match against Bangladesh on Tuesday. He said the defeat was not the end, but an opportunity to do better, and called on the players to rise and fight for the next game. The Prime Minister was among the thousands of Malaysian football fans watching as Malaysia take on Bahrain at the National Stadium in Bukit Jalil last night. He arrived at the Harimau Malaya Den at 8:45 p.m. and was greeted by Football Association of Malaysia or FAM President Datuk Hamidin Muhammad Amin and other leaders of the National Football Governing Body. Raja Muda Selangor Tengku Amir Shah Sultan Sharafuddin Idris Shah and Youth and Sports Minister Datuk Seri Ahmad Faizal Zumu were also present. In F1 news, Ferrari's Charles Leclerc put in a blinding lap in Saturday's qualifying to seize pole position for the Azerbaijan Formula One Grand Prix. The Monegasque lit up the timing screens with a 1 minute 41.359 seconds lap, beating Red Bull's Sergio Perez by a handy 0.282 seconds. His championship rival Max Verstappen, who holds a 9-point advantage over Leclerc in the overall standings, was third, 0.347 seconds adrift, while Carlos Sainz in the other Ferrari was fourth. Leclerc's performance on Saturday earned him his 6th pole from 8 races so far this season and 4th in a row. It made the 24-year-old the first driver to take a repeat pole around the Baku street track, having also started last year's Azerbaijan race from the front. Now, if he converts it later today, it would make him the race's first multiple winner. Verstappen and Perez had taken turns at the top of the timesheets during the first 2 phases of qualifying. But Perez reported an engine issue, while his Dutch teammate, who let out a frustrated sigh over the team radio, said his car did not quite have the pace to take the fight to his Ferrari rival. Former world number 1 Andy Murray looked back to his best on grass as he beat Nick Kyrgios 7-6, 6-2 to move into the final of the Stuttgart Open after a second set meltdown from the Australian. There were some entertaining rallies in an absorbing opening set, while Kyrgios also got the crowd going with an underarm serve and front tweeners. There was nothing to separate the two players, but in the tiebreak, Kyrgios found the net on consecutive points and Murray eventually sealed the set on his serve. A frustrated Kyrgios broke his racket in anger and earned himself a point penalty after dropping the first set, and he was still fuming when the second set got underway as double faults allowed Murray to break for the first time in the contest. The Australian, who was constantly complaining to the umpire, then received a game penalty, and he refused to continue playing, sitting in his chair until the supervisor came out and convinced him to finish the match. But by then, Kyrgios had lost his focus and made numerous errors as Murray quickly wrapped up the second set and sealed his spot in the final on his second match point when the Australian's return found the net. Earlier, second seed Berrettini of Italy also booked his place in today's final with a 7-6, 7-6 victory over Oscar Orte of Germany in 1 hour and 48 minutes. Now, last year's Wimbledon finalist battled through 2 tie-breaks to reach his first tour-level final of the season.
Why do we tell you stories?
Relevant,
New,
efficient,
accurate.
reliable. We bring you extraordinary stories from around the world, from politicians, bankers, and even your favorite celebrities. This and many more on RTM's English News.
With the MERS 999 application system, getting emergency assistance is now easier. Save Me 999 Police connects the Malaysian public to the police. Save Me 999 Deaf for those with hearing or speech impairments. And Save Me 999 Blind for those with visual impairments. Download now for free on your smartphones. MERS 999 and applications make emergency calls easier.
That's it from us this afternoon. In our top story, Malaysia's hopes to be the first to enact generation smoking ban. We leave you with visuals from the Small is Beautiful exhibition in London, the largest exhibition of miniature art in Europe, where visitors must lean or squat to appreciate every detail of the 143 miniatures made by 33 local and international artists. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Jessica Lee.